What's up, everybody? Back with another video, or continuing on. It's been a while. I'm not, I'm not good with the, I guess you could say, the sense of continuity with these videos. Take breaks for a while. My goal is to get through all of the steps in video format. We are on step 11. And then once we reach the final part of it, then I'm hopefully going to change this to an interview format. That's what I would like my primary videos to start being, are interviews, and hopefully eventually get to the point of where I can tape, or record rather, not tape. Gosh, what is this? The 1990s. Record rather, the groups that I do, if I can get the proper permissions to do that. So, yeah, been on vacation, was gone for a week, and went up to a beautiful place and had a wonderful time. Did something big with my life. I got engaged, not married, engaged. I don't know if they do engagement rings for men. I don't know, but anyway, asked the lady friend to marry me. She said yes, and she wanted me to get a ring too, so we got me a ring as well. People were mixed about that. They were like, "Did you get married already?" Because I guess that's when the guy gets the ring. I don't know, but it's been one of the primary questions. But anyway. So yeah, went on vacation, had a good time. Now we're back, and today we are talking about step, I believe 11 is where we left off. Step 11, which step 11 is a fun one. It's about control. This is one where in my groups typically I will address the idea of moderation. Because when you're talking about control, naturally that idea of moderation is going to come up. And just to be very clear, when it comes to moderation, I don't advocate for one way or the other. I speak about it openly, and in the sense that everyone out there is going to make their own decision regarding it, whether you should moderate or not, whether you want to take that chance. I've got certain rules that go with it, but before we get into that, though, I believe we first need to establish the idea that addicts have control over their addiction, and they have control over their intake and control over their using. And to kind of cement this, I present a series of questions with it. If you read the material, I present a series of questions, and the questions are, for instance, who or where did you buy your supply from? Who or where did you buy your drugs from? Me personally, I knew of quite a few different people when I was using who would sell, and out of those various people, I had two people in particular that I would regularly go to. I didn't just go up to the average person on the street, so to speak. I didn't go to the corner guy, I had two primary individuals that I would typically buy from. One was a night owl and the other was up during the day. And I would typically go to those two. And so I'd look at that and I'd say, okay, well, what is that other than me controlling who I get it from? For instance, if I was out of control, I think it would stand to reason that I would be, out of the people that I knew, it didn't matter who I went to. I would just pick whoever, and I would go to whoever at any time, but I had two particular people. On top of that, I think I hear the dog whining. I left her out and she wants to come in, I believe. Okay, let me let her in. Hold on. Kelly, okay, come on. Alright, yes. There, we got the dog in here now. Yeah, Kelly. Say hi. Yeah. Make the appearance. What? What? You were all worried. This dog is probably one of the neediest dogs you'll ever get. A Labradoodle. Isn't that right? By the way, so that is the first question that I would pose with this. The next question, for instance, when I would go to those people, I deliberately chose the amount of money that I was going to spend on it. I had a heroin habit of up to about $500 per day almost. But I had quite a bit of money at the time, but I didn't just empty the bank account on day one. I didn't, for instance, I knew I had bills later that I needed to pay, and so I wouldn't just spend every dime I had on it. And I'm pretty sure a lot of you out there, well, you were good budgeters in a sense. I know some addicts, they never had an issue with being broke. They spent, I guess you could say, wisely in a sense. And that would be, yeah, Kelly. And that would, he got a big old nose sitting right here. But that would, I look at that and I would say, okay, well, that seems like me exercising control over the financial aspect. How much money did I decide to spend? Equally, another area of control that we had, for instance, was why did some of us hide what we were doing? If you were truly out of control and you had no control over your behavior and what you did, then why is it we hid what we were doing in certain situations? Why isn't that, why didn't we use in front of our kids, for instance, if you had any? Why didn't you use in front of your parents? Why didn't you use in front of your priest, your pastor, your therapist, whatever it may be, your PO if you had them? If you were truly out of control, then why is it that we hid what we were doing? Why did we do that if we were truly out of control? And then finally, if we were truly out of control with our consumption, then honestly, why are we still alive? Why are you still alive? Being able to watch this. If you were truly out of control, then we should have done as much as we could do at every moment of every day, whenever possible. But the fact of the matter is, when I did heroin, I only did a certain amount because I knew that if I went over a certain amount, what I believed my tolerance was, if I went over that, then, well, I run the risk of ODing and overdosing. I didn't want to run that risk. And so I controlled the amount that I would take in. And again, I look at that and I say, okay, what is that other than us exercising our control over the things that we can control? And I believe that control is a universal reality, not a circumstantial, meaning, well, in some moments we have it and in other moments we don't. I don't believe that. I believe you either have it or you don't, period. When out of control and is used as a description of the addict, I look at that and I say, okay, well, that's a good therapeutic phrase to use. One of the things that I learned in now working in this kind of field is that there are things that's often termed therapeutic reasoning. In other words, we will tell people certain things just for the sake of trying to make that individual feel good or feel better, kind of golden rule like a doctor, do no harm. Well, we want to as, and I'm not a therapist or anything like that. I'm a recovery coach at the end of the day. Um, but there's a rule in therapy that is like that. Do no harm. It's, don't say anything intentionally that could make this person feel worse. And so that's kind of where I think out of control comes into play. Uh, Out of control works. It serves a purpose when we are not happy. It serves a purpose when the consequences of our behavior are not things that we want. It works when we are dissatisfied, when we need a reason to understand why things are the way we are or the way they are. And it's easy to say, well, you were out of control. This is why you're in this situation. The problem I have with that is that only works for a time. All right? That doesn't work. Believing you are out of control does not work if the goal is to stay clean. Believing you are out of control does not work if the goal is to not do this stuff anymore, or if the goal is to get your life back on track. Start being disciplined. Start having self-control. You can't believe you're out of control while also trying to learn self-control. It just doesn't work. And so this out of control idea is one of the things that I believe needs to go. We can't hold on to it. We can't keep saying that. We can't keep believing that. And so there's been plenty of studies over the years, plenty of experiments, plenty of research that's been done on this that shows that an addict has control. And there's things that determine that. And mainly in the experiments, they look at essentially incentives and rewards. Will someone control what they are, or will an addict control their consumption with the right rewards in place or with the right incentives in place? And so some experiments that were done on this, for example, they took alcoholics, and I believe this was back in the 70s, if I'm remembering it correctly. But one of the experiments was they took these alcoholics and basically kept them in a controlled environment, as they called it. And they were each given separate rooms. And these alcoholics were basically told that if you limit your consumption of alcohol for a certain period of time, then you will receive these incentives. So there was alcohol, there was beer, there was liquor placed in these rooms with them. And they were told, just as an example, that if you only drink, let's say, 5 of these beers throughout the day, then tomorrow we'll give you a TV in this room. Or if you only drink, let's say, half of this 5th throughout the day, then we will give you, a better bed, or we'll give you time outside. And I believe they did this with them for a couple weeks, if I remember correctly. And ultimately what they found is that there was a good majority, I think it was over 90% of the people who participated in this, ultimately they limited their drinking. They limited their consumption to the specified amounts for receiving the rewards. And they did experiments like this with cocaine as well, where they took a control group and told them, hey, just limit the amount that you do. No incentive, no reward, just do it, see if you can. And then the other group, they told them, okay, limit this and you'll receive a cash reward at the end. And obviously the group that had the cash reward at the end of it, they controlled their cocaine intake. They didn't go above the, I guess you could say, the prescribed limit. And so that kind of opened up this area of discussion where it seems to be that with the right incentives and the right rewards in place, even the worst of addicts, the worst of alcoholics, will ultimately control their intake. And it kind of did away with the notion, or at least those experiments kind of did away with the notion that, um, once an addict starts, they can't stop. Or the classic saying, one is too many and 1,000 is never enough. Um, Other data out there suggests that about 50% of recovering alcoholics will eventually turn to a moderate form of drinking. Now, that's only 50%, and that means there's a whole nother 50% that don't do that, or they try and they are not successful. So you got to think about that. And then I'm trying to think of the other one. It was the other one was it showed the research indicated that a pre-exposure to substance use actually helps to protect from future onset of a substance use habit. So basically, like any learning experience, if you've gone through it before, you're more likely to protect yourself from it happening again, as opposed to the common narrative that if you were exposed to addiction before, you're more likely to become an addict again. And so your whole life is about trying to avoid that kind of thing. When in reality, the research shows that it's just like any other learning experience. And you can look it up. That if you've had this problem before, then you would have learned things and become aware of things that can help to protect you from experiencing future substance use. And it kind of did away, or it kind of fought against the research that suggested, like once an addict, always an addict, or if you have a problem with one thing, you're going to have a problem with everything. So, and you can do your own research on it. It's interesting that there seems to be a common narrative out there with this stuff. If you do the quick Google search, and I found this through AI, not through going on Google, because when you go on Google, the things that pop up usually are, all the different research and tests out there that suggest, you're diseased and you're screwed up. And you can't, and if you do, then you're entering full-blown addiction again. You have to do some digging in order to find the actual tests that show, like, look, that idea, it's not true. Or it's one idea, but there are many others out there. That's probably more accurate. But anyway, so with that being said, when it comes to moderation, from the not addicted perspective, I have certain rules, and they're pretty easy rules. And unfortunately, my computer isn't working, so I don't have the material pulled up right now, but I'm going to try to go based off of memory. But the rules are as such. I know number one is this: if you want to guarantee that you never have these problems again with addiction, and it's a guarantee, if you want to take the safest way to ensure that you never deal with this stuff ever again, then when it comes to moderation, the answer should be no. Don't even try, right? Not engaging in it is a good guarantee that you'll never have a problem with it. Equally, rule number 2, that the easiest way to eliminate any risk that is associated with substance use, criminal risk, health risk, death, stuff like that, then again, don't even try. Not engaging in moderation attempts is arguably the easiest way to eliminate any risk associated with using. Rule number 3, if you believe in the disease and treatment model, again, don't even try. The disease and the treatment model, as some of you probably know, does not allow for this kind of decision, if you will, to moderate. Number 4 was I believe it was let your previous exposure, or no, number 4 was look at any using attempt in isolation. And to explain that one a little bit, it simply means if you do it, then look at the moment that you do it. Or if, let's say you have a relapse, for instance, and you experience that, then look at it in isolation. Do not extend one moment of your life to what it means for your entire life. You know, people do this all the time. They have one moment where, let's say they had a relapse, or maybe if you want to call it a lapse, you can call it a lapse, but they had that. They had an instance of substance use, as I would call it. And they take that moment and they don't look at what it just means, you know, in the present, but they extend it to their whole life. You know, if you've been sober for 10 years or so, then you have a moment of usage. You're not looking at that in isolation. You're saying, oh my God, what does that mean for my whole 10 years? And equally, what does it mean for my future? You know, do I need to go to treatment again? Am I going to become a full-blown addict again? Does this mean that my whole period of success for the past 10 years is just pointless now because I had one moment? If you're going to be successful at it, you have to look at each moment of using in isolation, not what it means to the extent of your entire life. That is where you get into trouble. That is, by doing that, that is how you talk yourself into full-blown addiction again. So look at the attempts in isolation. Essentially, give yourself a reason that if you regret doing it, to not let it go any further. And again, you do that by keeping it isolated, not extending it to the whole of your life. If you have any experience with this stuff, you know full well that one instance of usage does not translate to physical dependency. It may turn into, you know, the biggest thing you're going to have to deal with is the mental aspect, obviously. And that's where I'm saying you can help yourself out with this by looking at it in isolation. Do not extend it beyond the moment. You know, it's like, I mean, I'm trying to think of a good analogy to explain this a little bit more in my head. I guess in a way, in a way, it's kind of like, I don't know, let's say you get a bad haircut. And you get that bad haircut, and you're not saying, you know, oh my God, my life is over. I've gotten a bad haircut. No, because you know the hair is going to grow back. And then you know it's going to fix. It'll be fixed after a while, but you got to wait. You know, you're keeping that bad haircut in its place by saying, okay, give it time, wait for it to grow back. Instead of saying, oh my God, my life is over. I've got this terrible haircut and it's never going to change. You know full well that the hair is going to grow back, and that all you need to do is hopefully find a good way to deal with it for the time being. Maybe wear a hat. But that, I guess, I don't know if that's a good example or a good analogy for it, but it's really just that idea that, okay, you know, we have things in our life that we don't look at, like, what does that mean for, you know, the past? What does it mean for the future? But we look at it, okay, it only really matters in the moment. Maybe that's something to, maybe that's a better way to say it. Look at these using attempts just in the moment. Do not extend it beyond it, because that's where you get into trouble then, in my opinion. Rule number 5 now. Rule number 5 is like that research suggested. Let your previous using attempts inform any attempts at moderation, or let your previous exposure to substance use, what you've learned about that, the do's and the don'ts, if you will, let that inform any attempt to moderate. You know, I know people who, they know who they are, they know how they are, they know how they would act. And so, just simply based off of knowing themselves and having that prior experience, they know that if they were to try it, it would probably turn out bad. Now, if that's what you're thinking, don't equate that with having an addictive personality or, oh, I am someone who has the disease because when I start, I can't stop. Don't say that. Again, that's kind of cementing this idea that, you're suffering with something other than your own responsibility and your own decision making. Whenever, like for me, I know if I did heroin again, could I do it once and be done? Sure. Yes, I could. Would I do that? No, probably not. Simply because I know me and the person that I am is I find something that I like and I want it every day. I want to have that feeling as much as I can in any moment possible. That's me. That's who I am. That extends to anything, beyond just substance use. That whole idea extends to many other things as well. And so people will call that like a result of the disease. I just don't, that language in my mind is so defeating. Um, I think it's better to equate that as, it's your personality, it's who you are. And you understand something about yourself, and that's a good thing. You know that you find things you like and you want to keep going with it. It's not that you don't, it's not that you couldn't do that. It's just you wouldn't. Um, Kind of just arguing semantics there, really, in the language, but I believe that language is vital in this. You got to keep the ball in your court, and saying I can't do something, like I can't moderate because I can't stop when I start. That's again, that's very defeating language. That's determinism language. That's what we're trying to break out of here. uh, it's not that you can't, it's just that you won't, you don't want to. I think that's a better way of putting it. um, you could, but you won't, maybe. And that leads to rule number 6. And rule number 6 is simply, you know you best. And nobody can answer this question for you. I can't answer this question for you whether you should or you shouldn't. Um, this is something you need to think about, and come to a solution or an answer that you are happy with. Uh, Insight on me, I don't even, moderation has never been an idea of mine at all. I've never wanted to attempt it or anything like that. And it's mainly because I stick with rules 1 and 2. And rules 1 and 2, I never want the problem again, and I don't want to deal with the risks that are associated with engaging in substance use. And those two things alone are enough for me to be happy with the idea that I'm just never touching this stuff. I'm done with it. Um, so, the vital piece to this in a lot of ways is just making sure that whatever decision you make is, number 1, informed, number 2, what you want, and number 3, clearly thought out. Uh, and this is again why I don't force or suggest that we should force any kind of decision on anyone with this. We shouldn't say you can't do it, and equally we shouldn't say that you should do it. Um, we should I leave it open ended. It's up to you. Just make sure that you've clearly thought out whatever it is you're going to do, and be willing to accept the consequences if things go wrong. And that's what making the informed decision does. It makes you fully responsible for whatever happens with it. If you've thought it through clearly with an open mind, and you came to a decision to do it and engage in it, and then it goes bad and you deal with the consequences, well, there's no blaming a disease there. There's no blaming any kind of disorder. That was all you. You decided that, and so you get to bear the consequences of it. And again, that's taking responsibility for what we decide, and knowing that, again, we did what we wanted and we got a bad result for it. Well, then maybe change what you want to do if you want better results. I mean, it's kind of common sense in a way. But that's rule number 6, is just you know you best. And I just hope that the idea that you never want to deal with these problems again, and you don't want to entertain any of the risks associated with it, I would hope that that would be enough for someone to decide not to do this. But the good news is that it's completely up to you. If you don't want these problems, don't do it. Simple as that. And I say simple, don't equate simple with easy. That can be difficult, but just whatever you decide to do, just make sure you're happy with it. And make sure that you've thought clearly about the potential risks. Because the last thing that we want is to be forced into any kind of decision. Force implies future resentment in a lot of ways. And the last thing we need is being resentful over the decisions that we, or the things that we believe we had to do when we didn't really want to do them. But anyway, so that's kind of the gist of the whole control talk. Again, when it comes to moderation, I personally choose not to engage in it, and I'm personally very happy with that. My life is much better for it. And I just hope that whatever decision you come to, that number one, you remember, you got the control here. Don't let that ball get out of your court. The moment that ball goes out the court, then all bets are off. You've given yourself up to the god of disease, if you will, and the god of addiction, and you're going to be thrown with the wind, like a leaf with that. And that is something we want to avoid. We want to keep that ball in our court. And so make sure that when it comes to this moderation idea, that you do that if you are going to engage in it. And if you do decide to engage in it, well, then I wish you the best of luck. But I would say you're entertaining some risks that I don't think are worth it. And that hopefully you can eventually come to see as not worth it as well. And you make the decision happily to stay away from this stuff for good. And you will see your life improve because of it. So yeah, that's all I got for you on this idea of control. Until next time, next time it's step 12. We're pretty much almost done. I think 2 more videos and we'll have run through the whole material, and then these videos will be available to you whenever, and then we'll get started with the whole interview stuff. I'm looking forward to that. Interviewing therapists, interviewing recovering or recovered or once physically dependent addicts, and we'll get the interview series going, so that'll be fun too. So we'll see you soon. Stay strong out there, people, and just know there is hope, and we do get over this problem, and we do get better, only if you would let it. So let it rest. Peace.